Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everyone to the Keep Six platform. I am your guest, Rachel, that will be hosting today's discussion. Haven't seen everyone for a week or so welcome everyone. Can you confirm that you can hear me okay, please? Just want to confirm I have my co-host Natasha on as well, who's going to be assisting. So please feel free to ask questions. Just waiting for confirmation. Yes, you can hear me. Perfect. Thank you, Rich. Alrighty. So, this month we've decided to do something a little bit different. Obviously, with everything that's been going on over the last little while, there's been a lot of emotions, a lot of trauma. And so this month we wanted to still bring awareness to what's happening currently, but also look at different ways or avenues for means of healing, means of support, and different ways to kind of come together as a community, and even still continue to bring awareness. So with this, today we have our special guest, which is Kelly, and I think she just sent in the request. Kelly joining us today, Kelly Fyffe-Marshall. She is a film director and writer. Hi, Kelly.
Hello, hello. What's going on? What's going
How
on?
are you?
Good. How are
Long
you?
time no see. I'm good. I'm
I
good.
know. I
Th-
know. I know.
Thank you for joining us and being our guest today. I've been wanting to do this for so long.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to your questions. Looking forward to being on here, connecting with folks to see what's going on. Yeah, this is great.
Thank you. Thank you. So, yes, as I was saying, Kelly, you've been doing a lot of work within the BIPOC community, bringing a lot of awareness, social activism, especially with the current climate and what's going on. And you do it in a very unique way, in a very creative way. So today I want to talk about that, highlight what you've been doing, and kind of delve a little bit deeper. Um, Please feel free for our guests that are watching. Please feel free to ask questions, direct any questions you have to Kelly, as she will be able to answer them. I have Natasha on the back end who will be monitoring the questions. And Natasha is also communicating with me as well. So I'll be able to have our own way of two-way communication. So please feel free to reach out with any questions you may have. And yeah, so let's get started. First off, if you maybe just want to tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, how you got started, what it is that you do, and then we
Mhm.
can go from there.
Okay. So like you said, Kelly Fife Marshall. I'm a filmmaker, so writer, director, and also an activist. And I'm an activist and activator through film. Been in the industry for, I don't know, it feels like a long time, but I would say about 10 years.
Mhm.
Um, and just I've done everything from TV series to music videos to short films. Um, yeah, and it's just was born in England of Jamaican descent and realized very early on in my career that I had the power to create change, and so decided that I would do it through film, and film would be my medium to speak to people.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
And I know you have been doing it for quite some time because I remember when you were first getting into it when we were
Yeah.
younger, and seeing that kind of your growth from the very beginning going into now. So, I mean, you've done a lot when it comes to assisting, you've done music videos. Um, what was it? So, obviously, over the course of the years, you've had your own series of challenges. And the film industry in its own is one male dominated, but it's also not very BIPOC centered, let's say,
Hmm.
especially
Hmm.
when we're looking at it from a director's role.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so you're challenging the status quo in more ways than one.
Hmm.
Um, what were some of the challenges or experiences that you had? How did you navigate in an industry that really isn't made for females or people of the BIPOC community?
Yeah, I think like on top of being a black female, I'm also very young and I look very young. And so that was also a really huge issue for me because I was walking into these white male arenas and they were looking at me being like, I don't want to listen to what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
I started, like I said, quite a while ago. I got my first producing gig for Rogers Television when I was 16. And I got it because a white woman didn't think that I was good enough and thought that I was like talking too much and thought that I couldn't do the job. And I ended up taking her job from her. And she got fired. And she was like a 45-year-old white woman who was just like, you know, you think you can do better at this, because I was trying to give her suggestions. And she's like, I'm going to give you a week to do my job and we'll see what you can do. And I completely blew the whole production of the whole production company away. And she got let go and I got her job. And so like that's kind of something that I've been fighting my whole life, is just like people not wanting to listen to what I've had to say. But I think in a positive way, it pushed me towards doing my own thing and towards ownership before I realized that ownership was key. And so just like having the own production company with my producers, starting my own team that is all women, mostly black women, and my DP is a black man, and just having all of those, though, like creating my own film community
Mm-hmm.
came out of the fact that nobody wanted to listen to me when I was on these sets and speaking, due to the fact that I was this young black woman who knew a lot because I'd been in the industry for 6 years at 20.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so that was something that I had to fight a lot, and that's how I had to navigate. But was just learning and listening.
Yeah.
Also, like I always knew more than people because I sat back and listened to what was happening, and that's how I navigated those situations.
Yeah. And I like what you said in terms of you um you kind of creating your own community. So you didn't let what somebody else said of you hold you back. And a lot of times, especially for those within the Black community, it's based on them on being told we can't do something or we're not good
Hmm.
enough, that we we push forward and we're able to create something even bigger and even better than what they could have ever even imagined. And it's even like what Natasha's saying now, validate yourself, own your space. um,
Hmm.
and you're creating that within, not just for yourself but for others within the industry as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not ever letting anybody tell you that you can't do something.
Exactly.
So going from say working with say Rogers TV or doing music videos, at what point would you say that there was a turning point where you started to put more of your focus or your attention towards social activism in film?
Definitely. Like, I think for me, it's been like a slow climb. So like obviously as a young child growing up in England, I never saw myself on TV, and then going to Jamaica, like seeing only black folks on TV, and then coming to Canada and being like, I don't like it's possible. I don't understand why there's a pushback, and realizing that it's systemic racism. That was the reason why I couldn't see myself on TV. And so for me, that was like, okay, that's what's going to be my fight. I think activism has been something that's been in my blood. Like I'm a fighter, I'm an Aries, Kelly means warrior. Like there's so many different things in my being that makes me this fighter and makes me this person, that I think it's also been something I've always questioned things, but I've always gone beyond questioning and pushing to be like, but this isn't right. I want to know more. And
Mm-hmm.
so activism has come in so many different forms. I think it came together with filmmaking about I want to say 5 years ago was when I really found um, my place with activism and filmmaking, and that was because of like two major reasons. Was like what going on the internet and going on my phone and seeing black men and women being killed by the police at this crazy rate, and just watching the videos and being like, wow, this is really happening and no one's really doing anything about it. And then also just hearing like about women being sexually assaulted
Mm-hmm.
by men in especially the entertainment industry. And so I felt like it was, as a black woman, I have to make change somehow. I
Mm-hmm.
can't leave this earth and not make some kind of change in this earth, or my presence doesn't make sense. And so that was always been something that like I've always been an activist, but fine tuning it was, I would say, about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think it's very important because it's not something that happens overnight. Everybody
Hmm.
has like we've done the reposting on Instagram or Twitter or social media. We do the protests, but everyone kind of has their own way or finds their own way of what's specific to them within their own field in terms of how to
Hmm.
speak out. And for you, you found that through film, through your passion, right? It's
Hmm.
more than just work for you, it's a passion for you, and you're able to find a way to include that passion or almost include two passions, as it were, in being an activist and finding a different way to bring it forward. So, no, I
Hmm. And
love.
I think I push everyone else to do the same. Like find a way to activate in your where you are. You know,
Mm,
make ripples where you are. Is something I always say. Find a way to activate in whatever. Like if you work at the bank, find a way to give more Black people loans.
yeah,
Like if you work at a school and there's pushback from the district, find a way that in your class you can stand up for Black and Indigenous children. Like there's so many ways to activate. You don't have to do it in film. You don't have to be a speaker. You can do it in your own way, in your own arena. And I think that that's something that's super important. That's something I always say. Like activism, it can be sustainable and it can be something that we can and attainable, things we can all do.
yeah,
And it doesn't have to be this big momentous thing. You don't have to be Malcolm X. You can just do it yourself.
yeah. And I think that's something that sometimes a lot of people often they compare themselves to others, and it's
Hmm.
I'm not how can I walk in this person's shoes, so to speak, right? And I think that's something that, like you said, make ripples where you are. So speaking on that topic,
Hmm.
2018, you were able to speak at a TED Talk,
Hmm.
and that was the title of your speech and what you were speaking about. So I know you've spoken about it a little bit in terms of what that means. But how did you, and I know with this it was a little bit more focused with youth, but how were you able to bring that forward for youth for them to understand really how they can make ripples where they are?
Yeah, I think it's really just about like really making it not seem like this huge thing. Like that was something that I was speaking to you about. Like it change really is little ripples. It really is just little steps every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it does. It could be like one of the people that was also speaking there, like as he walked to work every day, he picked up the garbage on the floor and put it in the garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how you can make change. It's very simple things, and we just don't have to look at like the big picture of it all. Because if we all do these little ripples, then we all make tidal waves together. You know,
Exactly.
and that was something that was like this was all before the current situation that we're in right now.
Yeah.
You know, but how can we? I just want to make it very sustainable, so we're all activators and activists. We don't. It's not something that I would have to say. It's just something we all do
Mm-hmm.
in our daily life. How can we be the best humans that we can be and create the best world that we want to see?
Yeah.
And it's very easy. We just take these very small steps. Like it could be your racist uncle at Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
telling him, like talking to him about it. You know, there's so, and there's so much small steps. I think educating yourself, reading, watching movies, so many different things you can do.
Yeah. Finding like even the smallest things, um,
Hmm.
even the smallest things go the farthest, right? And it being almost
Yeah,
second nature too.
exactly.
Because I know sometimes people will push things off, so to speak. Like you said, being at Thanksgiving and having that racist uncle that makes a comment, just being like, yeah, well, he's drunk or he's no,
Mhm.
you
Well, that's
know?
that uncle, but it's like no,
Yep,
you know what
yep,
I mean? Because you don't know what he's doing at work. You don't know what he's doing to people in his community. You don't know who he's terrorizing, and so you have to stand up. And I'm speaking from example. Like I can say that I've done that with family members. Like enough is enough. Like
mm-hmm,
especially growing up in the Caribbean community when there's a lot of homophobia, you have to speak up and say, listen, like that's how we were raised, but like we're old enough to know the difference now. So it's time that we speak up and say we can't do this anymore.
yeah.
And so those kind of conversations, they're hard to have, but the world isn't going to get any better if we don't have them.
It's true. It's true. And it's Natasha just made a comment where she said, let's redefine activism and make change. And I think that's a wonderful way of saying it is redefining what that is. Activism doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be frontline, front and center, speaking in front of a group of people. It could be even the smallest comments, or even just finding how you're able in your own way to promote that.
Mm-hmm. And it's even like I've put out, like once I came out and said make ripples where you are, especially I made a post recently on Instagram. The amount of DMs that I've gotten from people being like, "Hey, this is what I did. This is like one lady was like, I called up my local I don't even know what the store was, but like it was a retail store, and I've told them to stop calling this certain color nude because it doesn't work for all skin colors."
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "So I'm trying to make ripples." Like all of these things really do help,
Yeah.
and so it's very interesting that when you start talking about how small steps can really redefine activism, anybody will do it and everybody will do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you completely. Um, so with that being said, I know we said within your film, we were looking at building awareness, especially with what's going on with Black men being killed and police brutality on what seems to be almost a daily basis at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then also sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
And you came out with a couple of films that speak specifically to these themes and to these topics. Um, so you came out with a film, Haven,
Mm-hmm.
and when I watched Haven, and I feel like I'm gonna cry right now talking about
Mm-hmm.
this, but that short film, as short as it was, hit on so many different emotions and
Mm-hmm.
spoke to so many. There is so much in that one little film that it took me a very long time to fully go through all of those emotions.
Yeah.
Um, and there's so many themes within that, and I don't want to give it away for everybody because I want everyone to have an opportunity to watch it themselves. But within a Black girl's life, and you were able to highlight so many different themes. One on the side of there being bonding and connection, but also on a topic that can often be concealed, especially within
Mm-hmm.
the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, First off, how did the idea for this film come about?
I want to first say that if you guys want to watch it, you can go to my Instagram and then go to IGTV and then click on Haven to watch it. It won't be on there for long. It's going to be on CBC later on next month. Um, yeah, Haven came to me in a very like in a different way. I was speaking to a friend. His name is actually Jordan Orm. He's my DP, and we were just talking about things that we wanted to do. And I was like, I really want to make a powerful film with two people in one room. Like money is always a constraint for filmmakers. So I'm like, this is the way that I can make a film. And so I'm a person who's a night owl. 4 a.m. is like my time to shine. And so I was up at 4 a.m. and I was thinking like, okay, I want to make this film with two people. I want them to be Jamaican because I'm Jamaican, but I want them to be immigrants. So I want them to be in Canada, like all of the things. And I was like, what would these two people say to each other, like in this room? And I was like, okay, I want them to be female. I want the little girl to be getting her hair done because that's something we don't see very often. Little Black girls getting their hair done. And then I thought about like how safe she would feel in that moment, and what is something like that's why I call it Haven, as a safe haven. What is something that she would disclose to her mother at this time? And that's how it built into that. And it's crazy because at that time I didn't know anybody that had ever been sexually assaulted. Um, I, but like as a child, it's not my story, but it was just something that I felt that the community needed. And so I just wrote it down, 4 pages long, and I sent it to some family members, and they were like crying, and I was like, okay, I guess I can make it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize the impact that it was gonna make until it was made. And just seeing like how far that it had gone was crazy, and just like all the like I actually had to go to a therapist and ask the therapist how to deal with people coming to me and telling me their stories. because I didn't know what it was gonna like. I always say I'm just a messenger. It's not always my message, but I am just a messenger. And so I didn't know the change that it was gonna make, but it was crazy, and beautiful and healing in the same way. Like it was everything that I wanted it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can see that. I can see um both sides in terms of how it could affect everyone. It's definitely one of those ones that gets you to think. Um,
Hmm.
it gets you to identify certain emotions, even to continue that conversation.
Hmm.
Um, I know when I watched it with my partner, it was one of those ones where we were like, whoa. Like
Yeah.
for us, it was like we both had to take a minute.
Yeah.
And it really, um, it gets you thinking. It really does.
Hmm. Which
Um,
is why like I ended it the way that I did, because I want you to think about it for a long time. Like it's a short film, but it really is a long film because you continue it in your head and you figure it out and you do all the things afterwards, and it lives with you for a long time.
yeah,
There's people messaging me and being like, "Yo, I watched it in 2018 and I'm still thinking about it."
yeah,
And that's what I want. I want people to go out in there to think about it and think about like the children in your community. Like I always say, there's no such thing as a bad child.
yeah,
Like children have just gone through bad situations, and so if there's children acting out around you, if you're in their community and you're in their village, it's up to you. It's like it's your responsibility to figure out what's going on in their life.
yeah. And I
And
like
so
that. Yeah.
Haven was my way of being like, we all need to step up. We've
Hmm.
been so glued to the internet and in our own world. It's time for us to really step up and look after our community and look after our village.
Hmm.
And so that's why I wanted it to stick with people, because I want it to be like you go to your cousin's house and your little cousin's acting a little strange or something, and you're like, wait a minute, let me go and talk to them because they probably need that, you know.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's why I made it so short and why I didn't really give it an ending per se.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that term when we often talk about it, taking a village to
Hmm.
raise a child, and it's important for us to really take in their surroundings, take in their actions, and try to identify the underlying cause, like you said.
Hmm.
Um, so with this film, like I had said, there was the theme of bonding and communication. Then there's also the theme of, or the topic of, sexual assault. Why
Hmm.
did you feel it to be so important to portray both sides? I know you had said originally, like, we don't see often Black girls getting their hair done in film.
Hmm.
Why was that something that was so important to be portrayed?
I think this like the monolith of like the Black life that's portrayed in the media. Like we don't see tender moments between a mother and daughter. I sure haven't seen that with Black mothers and daughters, you know. And so we're taught that that's not like a thing that Black mothers and daughters do, and so it perpetuates in our life. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important that we show these moments so that Black people, I mean, so that other people that aren't Black can see it, but also that Black people can see it and be like, yeah, like that's what I want with my family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it was important for that bond. But I also believe that having that bond and that and showing that really sets you up for the end. And they work in tandem with each other. And
Mm-hmm.
also show you that like you can be really like the taboo of sexual assault happening to people that like don't their moms aren't around, or their mom, like it can
Yeah.
happen to you and you can be close with your mother, or you know you can have a close tight knit family. And
Yeah.
so also squashing that like it only happens to people that are abandoned is not true.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. It's like you thinking that you have a tight knit family doesn't excuse that it could happen. But if
Mm-hmm.
you have this one uncle around and you're like, oh yeah, he's that crazy uncle, the same thing I was talking about before, then you're excusing that
Behavior.
kind of behavior.
Yeah.
And so that was why it was important for me to show that like you can have all of the things and this can still happen to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's true. And with that being said, were there any challenges that you faced when it came to creating this film, when it came to whether it be casting or just really putting basically that paper to into creativity?
Definitely with like casting, like finding a little girl was super hard. That was the hardest thing for me. I I searched like high and low, and then I'd find people, and then I'd send the script, and their parents would be like, definitely not. And because the child is young, so I'm essentially introducing them to this new world. And
Mm.
I was also very scared that like I would introduce this child to this world, ruin them, and walk away with this film. You know, and having the I needed to have the responsibility of like introducing them to this topic, but also like guiding them through it and knowing that I wasn't just leaving them.
Mm.
I found I'd worked on like a Mother's Day gift, and worked with this lady, and her daughter Davina was there, and I remember she told me she wanted to act, and she was a very mature little girl, and so I reached out to them, and she was like, and I was like, well, let me know, like I'll be there through the whole process, and so she said okay, and then I like had to go to I went to her house, and like I sat with her for like 4 hours and spoke to her through everything from like getting your period and menstruation all the way to giving birth and what that looks like, and really like in 4 hours introduced her to all of this stuff, and it was scary because I was scared, but I told her like, listen, you can call me whenever, and we still chat, and let's have conversations about it because I didn't want to just leave her. But she's a very mature, very very mature little girl, and did an amazing amazing job. She's an amazing actress. And then getting the mom, like I'd seen Tika Simone, who's plays the mother figure on Instagram, and I didn't know her, but I just felt like she would be perfect for this. So I'd emailed her, and been like, hey, are you down to do this? And she was like, I'm super busy, but send me the script and I'll take a look. And also saying like, there's no budget. I don't have money to pay you. Sent her the script. She read it and she was like, you can't do this without me. Like, I need to be involved in this. And then once we got on, like everything came together, got on set. And right before we were about to shoot, Tika whispered in my ear, this is actually my story. This happened to me.
Wow.
And so like it changed everything because now I was responsible for telling this story even more properly than I'd imagined in the beginning, because it was resting on my shoulders to tell this story for so many people that I didn't know but now knew.
Mm.
Yeah, and so I'm very happy that like I reached out to her and she was a part of this, and it really, I think it gave it everything that it needed to fly away, really.
Yeah, yeah, no, I hear that. I hear that. And I love the fact that um, what separated you was that you took the time to ensure um, that your cast was mentally prepared.
Mhm.
It wasn't, I have this vision, I want to get it done, let's do it, and then moving on. You took that time to sit down, to discuss it, to create a relationship, to create a bond,
Mhm.
and to follow up and keep that bond and keep that relationship too. And it speaks to that same thing we were talking about before in regards to like having that village. It may not necessarily be immediate family or close members. It could be someone within the community, someone that you've just met in an event,
Mhm.
that could become your village.
Yeah.
Um, and who's to say how that impacts her later on within her childhood too,
Mhm.
right? Um, but no, I definitely recommend for our viewers, take the time to go to Kelly's IGTV, and take some time to watch Haven, and reflect. That's what I would say. That's what I would say.
Mhm. Mhm.
So moving from Haven now to Marathon.
Mhm.
Another very powerful film. Another film that gets you thinking, right
Mhm.
from the beginning. This one speaking to police brutality, racial bias, uh, the lack of accountability on the part of the individuals that are supposed to protect us. Um, what's the response been with this film? And I mean, this is something that we feel that we're living through almost daily now. We're seeing this,
Mhm.
as bad as it sounds, it's almost that it's no longer surprising, so to speak.
Mhm. Mhm.
What's been your response, or what has the response been from this film?
So this one obviously completely different. With so I made a two-part film, Marathon and Black Bodies. Black Bodies I haven't released. Marathon I released because I like many others watched the video of Ahmed Aubrey being slaughtered on the street, and he was running. And so like my team, we all like got on the phone and we're like, whoa, we need to release Marathon because it's so timely and it speaks to this, and it also gives people that aren't black the opportunity to understand like what we're running from and how we're running and why it's constant. And so we released it in on his 26th birthday,
Mm.
and it kind of like it spread far and wide. I think we have about 20,000 views collectively between all the places we've posted it. And the reaction is just like a lot of people that aren't black have reached out and been like, wow, I understand more. I understand how like your life is overwhelming. I understand all of these things. It gave them an understanding, and then a lot of black folks reached out to me and was like, thank you for being like our spokesperson. Thank you for, for saying the things that we can't say. Thank you for like a lot of people have sent it to their family members and people that they know and peers and offices. One lady reached out and she said, I sent it through my office because I didn't have the energy to talk about Ahmed Aubrey, but I wanted them to know how I felt.
Mm.
And she's like, so I just sent this throughout my office for them to watch. And so I'm happy that it serves as a marker for that. And it's crazy that like I filmed that in 2019. Yeah. And that it's still so like it's like I filmed it for this exact moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Timely.
that's yeah, it's been super crazy, but it also is upsetting to know that we still have the same issues. I could have all releases in 2016 and 2014, and the issues are still the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and that's one of those things that is in its own way, it speaks in itself, right? It's a film that
Mm-hmm.
was created before what happened to
Mm-hmm.
Ahmaud Aubrey, but it was still so relevant and so timely to those current events.
Mm-hmm.
And it speaks to how much more work needs to be done,
Mm-hmm.
and how much more we need to look at systemic racism and change within policing, change within the response, and how things are being responded to, accountability. It speaks to so many different themes, and for what a lot of us activists and people that are speaking out or have been speaking out to and building awareness for. And with Marathon, where can viewers watch Marathon?
Same thing, IGTV,
IGTV.
on my Instagram, yeah.
Perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
So for everyone on, if you check out Kelly's IGTV, you'll be able to find both Haven and Marathon on there. So please be sure to take a look. Both of them are films that really speaks volumes, gets you thinking, and really speaks to a lot of what's going on currently right now. Um, so film, I mean, you've been working within building awareness in film for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know in more recent years, you and some of your team um, went through your own personal experience,
Mm-hmm.
um, one of which went viral in many different platforms. Um, are you able to share a little bit about that experience, what took place? Um, yeah,
Yeah, I can share a little bit about it.
yeah.
Yeah, so essentially, I went to California for a music festival. We rented a rental property, and on the way out of our rental property after staying there for I want to say through I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 days. We'd stayed there for about 3 or 4 days. Me and my peers, three of us were black. Were leaving out of this rental property, and a white woman across the street saw us, assumed that we were robbing the place because we were black, and she said we were taking suitcases out, which is what you do when you're leaving a rental property. And she called the police on us and said that we were robbing the place. And then that led to being surrounded and detained by 7 police cars and officers, and a helicopter. And
Wow.
so, as a filmmaker, I took out my phone straight away and started filming it because I was just in shock that like And it's because I saw the white lady, and I was like, as Black people, you're like, oh, she's gonna
Mm-hmm.
call. And so I said it out of jest, like maybe she would call the police, and they'd be like, okay, ma'am, calm down, or they would send one officer, but not seven cars. And so yeah, we were leaving the Airbnb, and that happened. And so um, I gotta be careful about
Yes.
what I say. But
Yes.
yeah, but yeah, we were detained, and I filmed it. I then edited it on my phone. I posted it online. A lot of people who know me were like, "Oh, Kelly's shooting a film. This is so sick." And I was like, "Definitely not a film. Like this really happened to me." And yeah, within like I would say the week, it went viral. The next day, I actually flew back to Toronto that night. The next day, I had like 10,000 views, and then like I want to say a week later, it had 10 million views, and it was just crazy. We ended up doing press reached out to us to ask us to come out and speak, and we ended up doing shows from like CNN, HLN, BBC, the National, CBC. We were on Teen Vogue, literally everything. But just being able to speak up on that situation and speak to like what this looks like, what police bias looks like, what racial bias looks like. We were able to go to a jail in New York and speak to some youth about what they had gone, like our experience, and just speaking to them being like, yeah, this happens to us every day.
Mm-hmm.
For when like police know that they can't harass us until we're 16. Some of them will come up to us and be like, "Oh, it's your 16th birthday, happy birthday." Like they've carded us so much that they know when my birthday is. Like God, men will be like, I'm from Brooklyn, but if I go to the Bronx and they see me, they're like, "Why are you here?" Like we live in a slave state. Like I can go wherever I want to go. And so just speaking to the youth at that time made me realize like, yo, they can't speak the way that I can speak. Like cameras are on me right now, and they can't speak the way. And so that's why we did all of those shows, to be able to speak for these youth and be like, this is happening all the time. This is happening every day. And trauma doesn't necessarily mean that it ends in your death. Trauma is it happening all the time. Trauma is it happening that like I have PTSD from that one time.
Yeah.
And so like I remember after taking my suitcases out of my car here and being like, shoot, is someone watching me? And having to deal with that. Or like when the police come, like my whole body tensing up because I've been detained for something I never did. And we were detained, but they never once searched the car, nor did they search the house that we robbed. And so what were we being detained for? And so that was something that like that changed me as an activist. It gave me more fuel, but changed me as a person, because I realized like there's kids out there that this is happening, and adults and men and women that are Black in America, that happens all the time. When I go to America and this happens, they don't see me as being British or Jamaican or Canadian. They see me as being Black.
Yeah.
I'm an African American straight away.
Yeah.
And so that's also something that I thought was super important to speak up about, because we need to realize that like the African American fight is our fight. Because when you step across the border, they're not like, oh, she looks Canadian. They're not saying that. You're just one of them. And so it really changed the way, like as an activist, I took a look at things and took a look at stories and realized that like the Black struggle worldwide is our struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it speaks to so many different emotions. Like I've spoken to so many different individuals who've had similar experiences when it comes to police and authorities. And many speak on that same feeling of trauma. I mean, I personally have had my own personal experiences, but even with other individuals that I know as well. And oftentimes when I hear everyone's experience, it's, hey, I went through that, or I've done that. I've gone through that same thing. And sometimes people feel maybe I'm going crazy. Maybe like,
Yeah.
is it me? And so it's all too often now that there's so many people that have these similar experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening within the Black community all too often as well. And it's really important to understand how to identify those emotions, how to navigate through those emotions, and then push forward. And I mean, even then pushing forward, it doesn't mean that it then eliminates those feelings.
Hmm. And
Those feelings are
then there's
still
the
there.
people that like for me it happened that I mean it's happened to me in Canada quite a few times, not on such a traumatic scale, but there's people out there that can continuously happens to them.
Yeah,
And so it's really hard to heal from trauma when it's a trauma that happens every time you leave your house.
yeah,
And so that's also something I was looking at, like that kind of PTSD is something that like we need to figure out as a community how we can help people through it, because all of the violence within communities is not going to stop until we figure out how to fix all of those traumas.
yeah,
And we can't fix it until it stops, and that's why we got to defund the police, really.
yeah, yeah. No, and I agree. And I think also too, sometimes within the Black community, we fail to acknowledge those emotions. We bury them down, um, and we don't speak on those. And
Because we've been, but it's also because this isn't an excuse, but we've had trauma for forever.
mhm,
And we're also like I'm carrying my mom's trauma, and she's carrying her mom's trauma, and her grandma's trauma, and her great grandmother was a slave, so we're carrying that trauma. And so we're just, because we've always been carrying trauma, we're just like, just shut up and carry it, and let's just move on. Like, let's just live.
yeah,
And that's like our mentality, as opposed to like healing from the trauma, because it's been so continuous. We're like, if we just package it away and we just continue to live, then we'll be okay. And that something I always talk about is like our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents were so focused on surviving, and it's up to this generation to figure out how we can thrive. Like, this has got to be our mentality, is how can we thrive past that? Survival was their mechanism, and it's gotten them this far, but we have to do better. We got to do the healing and the thriving now, because the survival is not going to help us get to a better place.
yeah. No, it's true. It's very true. And I see Natasha here. This is her, she's our psychotherapist. So this is her
Mm-hmm.
area, and she's saying it's continuous trauma due to systemic intergenerational racism, which is
Yeah.
really exactly what you've said. And it's really us coming together, even within ourselves as a community, to heal,
Mm-hmm.
identify, and to heal together, to be our own village and really heal
Mm-hmm.
together. So, I mean, with that experience, I know quite a few of you had come together and created We Have a Right to Be Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what have been some of the initiatives that started with this campaign? How have you used this experience to really continue to inspire and educate others?
I think the biggest initiative that came out of it was Marathon and Black Bodies. So the other two people that were with me during that incident in California are the main stars in Marathon and Black Bodies. So when you watch, you'll see them. Um, and so yeah, we use I think we have the right to be right. It's important that people understand that you have the right to be right. And I
Hmm.
think so often we don't realize that that's our right.
Hmm.
We're found guilty straight away. We are the guilty people straight away, and we need to recognize that no, this is our right. Um, a lot of what we do is like traveling and film exhibits and just having conversations with people, going to prisons, having conversations, and just learning more about our people and how we can help. We've been doing some like three therapy that where we take on the financial barrier, because I think that's a huge thing within our community. And a lot of it has just been a lot of creative stuff. Komi Ola, who's a part of the organization, he does it through visual art. And
Hmm.
so if you go to his Instagram, Komi Olaf, his art is amazing. Denisha is an activist and speaks a lot on it, so she does it through that. We have photography, so many different ways. So we just, how can we use our art to make people realize what's going on, and create that intelligence. So it really is just exactly what's happening now. We've just been doing it for a while.
Hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
No, and I think that's definitely the sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. Um, I think there's so many different initiatives that have come out of what could have been a possibly what is a negative experience, right?
Hmm.
Um, but it's so beneficial to see what's come out of that. Um,
Hmm.
be it, I know you mentioned therapy. That's something that, especially within the BIPOC community, is looked down upon. It's
Mm-hmm.
very hard for individuals to really open up. And I've had this conversation with my own family members, um, where it's like, hey, maybe like just as a suggestion, it's like, no, no, what do you
Yeah.
mean? Like, no. And so really having those conversations, having those opportunities, or giving people the ability to have those opportunities as well, because for some it can be a financial barrier, be it if they don't have the finances for it or insurance or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And then even taking it a step further, going into prison systems, speaking with the youth, understanding what they're going through, and then using the platform that you have available to really be the voice for the voiceless.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, as unfortunate as it is, we have to go through certain situations to be able to open up um, opportunities for others, really.
Yeah, like I always say that, like, as traumatic as that experience was, and it was hard in the moment, and I'm sure if you asked me when I was going through it, I'd have been like, oh, like I never wanted to have gone through this, but in hindsight, like, it gives me the power and the autonomy to speak for people, to have these, like you said, be the voice for the voiceless, and learn about I have a platform, and and with the platform comes responsibility.
Hmm.
So it is my responsibility to speak for people and to have these conversations and figure out how we can make change. Yeah, therapy is a huge barrier for healing, but financially, like, I think it's just about how do we break the taboo of therapy.
Hmm.
And so if we do it in a way that's cool, then we can do that. So at my events, I will have therapists walk around and speak to people, and they don't realize that that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'll have you in therapy without you realizing that you're in therapy. Um, and so, yeah, I think that's just it. It's so important. We just got to make therapy cool.
Hmm. Yeah. And even more culturally sensitive,
Hmm. Yeah.
more attentive to what's going on. And I feel that's one of the things too, is that it's people feel that they're being judged or they're being looked at a certain way. So having a means where, like you said, making therapy cool, where it's a means of um, healing, seeing it as a means of healing,
Hmm.
and being sensitive to the needs and being
Hmm.
catered to the needs of the BIPOC community.
Hmm.
So you've done so much work over the last 10 years. You were nominated and received the Best Black Canadian Filmmaker Award. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Um, you've grown so much within your craft. You've built awareness. What are some of your plans for the future? Will be it whether it be call to action for the BIPOC community, whether it be within the entertainment industry itself. Um, what are some of your plans, or what do you see happening in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I mean, if you speak to anybody that knows me, I come up with plans every day. Like, I have a new plan of, like, this is what we're gonna do, and everyone's like, oh, okay, Kelly has a new plan. But I think, like, especially right now, just trying to figure out, like, how to be a sustainable filmmaker, a sustainable Black filmmaker during these times. Something that's super important to me, and a lot of filmmakers have to go to the States to sustain their living, and that's not something that I want to do, especially with the way that they treat Black folks in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And so also, so that's something that I've been working on, is like, how can I make it a sustainable for Black and Indigenous filmmakers to stay in Canada, make money, have a house, like, do all the regular things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on some initiatives right now, during this time, to make change in the industry, through my production company, Sunflower Studios, to build on sustainability for artists. Um, and then also, like, Make Ripples is my new foundation, and so also making activism sustainable
Mm-hmm.
is something that I'm also working on, along with some of my peers. And so those are the immediate goals, is just trying to make change. They feel like on a grand scale right now, but that's where we're at in our career. So just like I said, make activism sustainable and make filmmaking sustainable is where I'm at right now.
Hmm. And have you seen more communication or movement within more of the well-known film platforms? I know we have like the Black Film Festival, but within other film festivals, be it, say, for example, in Toronto, being TIFF being the big one
Mhm.
here, has there been more movement or more communication towards um, being more open towards the BIPOC community? Has that been something that you've seen?
I mean, yeah, I think I've seen it over the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years. Like the head of TIFF is a black man, the co-chair of TIFF. So he has been working on it for the last 4 or 5 years. But with everything that's systemic, like it takes time,
Yeah.
and so everything's really going on a slow crawl, and so it's just up to us to like make it faster, but also join the race and figure out how we can all make this change stick. Because essentially, like he could do all the work and someone else could come in and take it all away, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely have seen change in the last, like I would say, 4 to 5 years. I was a part of a cohort called Black Women Film, who I'd like to shout out. They actually have a GoFundMe campaign right now that they have up. But yeah, literally, they're making change within the industry along with TIFF, like helping Black women be more sustainable filmmakers. And so TIFF is doing its thing. It's just a slow
The
climb.
process. It's the process. It doesn't happen overnight. I feel
Yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah.
So we have about 8 minutes left. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to forward them. I know I had one question here.
Mhm.
What are some of the ways you learned to heal from the responses of your films?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And I don't know if I have completely learned that yet. I think like it's an ongoing process. I would say community is probably the biggest way. I'm
Mm,
very blessed to have like a community of filmmakers around me, a sisterhood, and it's based on healing. Like our sisterhood is based in healing, and so that's been something like being able to turn to people and speak to people, which is also like something very new for me. That wasn't something that I did when I was younger, and
mhm.
so definitely I think community has been a way that I have learned to heal from the responses, and also knowing that like my place on earth is to make these films, and so like being centered in the fact and grounded in the fact that this is my responsibility.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear that. I hear that. And what advice would you say you have for individuals within the film industry that are maybe starting out, um, whether it be wanting to direct or even within the acting industry? What kind of advice do you have for those individuals?
Um, I think it's just do it. Like with Haven, we didn't have any money. We didn't have like everything. The only thing that my producer paid for was the food for people. We got everything for free. And so the opportunities are there. You just have to get the right script, the right voice, and people will follow. People will want to join. Like something that Issa Rae says is horizontal networking. Like don't feel like you gotta like email someone above you or get to someone above you. Like find the people on your level that want to do the same things that you want to do, and then grow with them. You know, and that's what I did. Like with Haven, I had my little dream team. My producer Tamar Bird, my DOP Jordan Oram. I had my gaffer on there, Mitchell Gal, and we've really all grown together. We've been making films together since then, and so that's been something that's really important. Like just finding that team and just doing the work. Like don't worry about the money, just do that, and everything will come with it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear that. Um, it's always, I think we sometimes always put that barrier in front of ourselves. It's like, well, not right now, and keep pushing it off. And it's
Mhm.
really nothing tried, nothing done. So
Exactly,
just
and you can't
really,
find your voice if you
yep,
don't do the work. You know,
exactly.
my first films were really bad. Like it helped me realize like who I was as a filmmaker. It helped me realize like as a director you're in charge of so many different things, and it really helped
Hmm.
me fine tune all those things and figure out what was the message that I wanted. Like we're especially like my films are very like not what you're taught in film school, and so that alone was something that like I don't have an ending to most of my films, and we're taught beginning, middle, and end. And so I studied all the greats, and then I did what I wanted to do.
Mm.
And I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't done the shitty films in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I hear that. So how do you keep your self-confidence?
Oh, that's a good question. It could just be who I am. I don't know. I mean, I have my up and down days. I think that kind of all falls back to community also.
Mm-hmm.
Community, having my team, um, giving myself like that pep talk. And then one thing that I realized very recently was that like people they this is sound could sound cocky and but they need me
Mm-hmm.
as much as I need them. You know, like the networks need my brain and my thought process and who I am and my impact work as much as I need their money.
Yeah.
And so I have to walk in with confidence because I can walk out and they don't have anything as much as I don't have anything.
Yeah.
So that's something that keeps me confident. But I would say community is really the thing. Like having that grounding and that foundation really holds you down.
Yeah. No, for sure. And it's one thing, it's not just keeping yourself confidence, but it's also staying true to yourself,
Hmm.
what you believe in, not diverting from that cause too.
Yeah,
You see a comment here where it's aligning yourself with positive people,
yeah,
people that you can grow with, people that you can build with, which I mean is something you've spoken on pretty regularly today when it comes to your own peer group itself too.
yeah. I was
Um,
very intentional with how I picked people. For me, it's not about like what you can do. It's about like what is your. I think my biggest thing is like what's your cause? Like what are you here on this planet to do,
mhm.
and what am I here on this planet to do? And if it aligns, then everything else will fall into place.
Yeah.
You know, and so I was very intentional with my team and who I picked, and that's
Mhm.
really what it was. Like we all are on the same mission, and
Yeah.
you can build your army if your mission is the same. And so that's something that I've been doing for a long time, but I'm very, very intentional. And I'll meet people on the street and be like, oh, this could be the person. And I'll come back to my producers and they're like, you're always finding people. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, like, I feel it. I feel it. And so, yeah. And that's how we built our team. Like, we went from just me to like, I would say there's about 10 of us now, you know, and then obviously with every film it gets big and small
Yeah.
and whatever, and we're working on our first feature film right now, and so the team's going to get a lot larger. But yeah, it's really just the intentions of making sure that you can like you stay grounded, and the people around you, like my people around me will tell me when I'm not on my game,
Mhm.
and they'll
And you
also
need
tell me
that.
when my stuff is shit. They'll be like,
Yeah.
did you watch it? Because this isn't good, and that kind of, and so that really keeps me in a good, and like also means that when I call them and I'm like, hey, this is my new idea, and they're like, it's not it, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go back to the drawing board. That's super
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. No, you need to have that open dialogue, open communication, people that aren't afraid to tell you exactly what it is and to be real with you.
Hmm.
So, no, we
Yeah.
definitely appreciate that.
Hmm.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being on live with me, for being my guest. I think this conversation has been super, super powerful in terms of really just speaking to um, combating that systemic racism, making ripples where you are,
Yeah.
and making that change. And for everyone that is watching, please go on Kelly's Instagram, directed by Kels. Check out her IGTV. You'll be able to find Haven and Marathon on there.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for some more goodies that are coming shortly. I know you said you have some things in the works, Black
Hmm.
Bodies.
Yeah. Black
I'm
Bodies is
waiting
already
on
done.
that.
So it's coming out. It's coming
I'm
out.
waiting on that one. But yes, thank you so much for being on here. You've been a
Thank you for having me.
powerhouse. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But yeah, if you want to let everyone know where they can find you, be it Instagram, website, what have you.
Yeah, so my website is my name, kellyfyfemarshall.com, but it's easier, directedbykels.com also leads you to the same place, and then directed by Kels is all of my socials. So you can find me there on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Perfect. Wonderful.
Hmm. Thank you so much for having me. It's been
No
great. It's been a
problem.
great conversation.
Yes,
Your questions are amazing. They had me really digging deep and thinking. So I appreciate it.
no, for sure. Anytime, anytime. With that, we will be back next week again with Trey Arts. Thank you everyone for joining. And yeah, peace and blessings. Thank you again. And I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank
All
you. Have a
right.
good night. Bye.